There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello Booktube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with the Midyear Book Freakout Tag 2019 edition. This is my second year on Booktube at this time of the year, so I will put a link in the show notes to my 2018 version. This tag was originally created back in the 1940s, I think, by IsThatChami. And that video and that booktuber are no longer with us on YouTube, so I can't link to the original. I was tagged by Adam of Memento Mori last year and this year. Thank you for remembering me, for mementoing me, Adam. And also by Alex of What Page Are You On? So I'm linking to both of their videos, which are wonderful, and there's many other great versions of this tag floating around Booktube. So let's get started. Number one, the best book you've read so far in 2019. I am going to be a wuss and choose three, and long-time regular viewers of my channel won't be surprised by any of these. Edward P. Jones's novel, The Known World. It is now my third favorite novel of my entire reading life. Ian Lee's autobiographical essays, Dear Friend, From My Life, I Write to You in Your Life. And Queen Mary, The Quest for Queen Mary by James Pope Hennessy. This is nonfiction. It's very rare for me to love a work of nonfiction so much that I would even think of including it as an answer for this type of question, but yeah. I have reviews of all of those that I will link in the show notes. I have talked so much about those three books that I didn't even give you a little snippet of a comment. I will try to do put a little bit of commentary in for the remainder of these questions. Otherwise, they're going to be finished in 5 minutes. We can't have a 5-minute long video on my channel, can we? Number two, the best sequel you've read so far in 2019. There are literary sequels, but I haven't read any that really would qualify as a sequel. So what I've come up with is Ali Smith's Winter, which I buddy read with Britta earlier this year and loved. And it's a seasonal quartet. I read autumn. This is winter. Haven't gotten to spring yet in the bibliographic sense. This was really great. I didn't quite get everything. I'm not quite on the Ali Smith train, but the two that I've read of her quartet are wonderful. I thought that so many of the characters were so five-dimensionally drawn and intriguing, and the way that Ali Smith can put art and intellectual material into a novel and make it work and make it viscerally compelling it's magic. Number three, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. This one was easy because everybody in the American South who are on Booktube recently buddy read The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay, which is a debut novel from a writer from Bangalore in India. And I heard a little bit about it when it first came out, not very much, and these to a person, Doris of Aldi Books and Jacqueline of 6 Minutes for Me and Kendra of Kendra Winchester and Robert of Barter Hordes, they were all in this buddy read, to which apparently those of us who don't live in the American South weren't invited. Absolutely loved it, and I love fiction from this part of the world and have already scheduled a buddy read with Britta coming soon, so I can't wait for that. If those people are all that excited about it, I don't even need to read it to put it in my top 10 list, hey? Number four, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Every year around this time, I think I had made the same little note to self in the middle of my video last year. I usually am disappointed when I overly fixate or overly focus on new releases, and boy, is that ever true for 2019 so far. So there's one coming out early next month that I'm very excited about. The writer is Rowan Hiseo Buchanan, and her first book, which came out about 2, maybe 3 years ago, was Harmless Like You. Look at that cover. And I love this. There was one storyline where I didn't think the character was as fully drawn, and that made that strand of the narrative, which was almost 40% of it, as satisfying as the other half, where this character was a young woman. But that part of the story was so wonderful, and I thought the writing was just gorgeous, that I have been waiting for her next novel, and it comes out July 11th, and it is called Starling Days. I don't know a thing about it, but I am going to hop onto that one. I don't know if I'll get to read it in July, but I would definitely want to read it as soon as possible, because I'm really excited about Rowan Hiseo Buchanan's future. Number 5, biggest disappointment. I am so disappointed to tell you that my biggest disappointment is Ocean Vuong's debut novel, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I hated it. I loved his poetry. I hated this so much. I haven't yet filmed my final review, and I am going to do a little bit of rereading in it to see whether I missed something, because everybody else in the world loved it. My buddy reader, Dan of the Weird Book Club, didn't love it, but he didn't hate it like I did. So I want to do a little, to be fair to it, I want to do a little bit of rereading to see if maybe I had an intestinal virus that week. So stay tuned for my review, but I don't think it's going to be very pretty. Number 6, biggest surprise. Adam, just go get yourself another Long Island iced tea, or what do you hipsters drink? I don't know. I have no idea. But go get one of those beverages and just ignore my answer to this question. Because my biggest surprise was I loved this story by Sally Rooney, Mr. Salary. This is part of the Faber Stories individually bound short stories that Doris of Aldi Books and I are filming video discussions about. And I hated and bailed on Sally Rooney's novel Conversations with Friends. And almost everybody who I no, that's not true. There's a few booktubers I respect that deeply loved her second novel, Normal People. So let's be fair. And other bookish friends who loved it. But in the main, most booktubers who share my literary tastes loathed Normal People. And so I just thought, I'm done with Sally Rooney. But I read this, I thought it was a really excellent short story. So that might mean that Sally Rooney is a short story writer, or I like her short stories. As far as I know, this is the only one that's been published. Or maybe Sally Rooney is delightful in small doses. But yeah, this was a really good story. Okay, Adam, you can come back now. Favorite new author. It also won't come as a surprise that it's Ian Lee. This collection of memoiristic essays really just got all the way inside me. I'm currently buddy reading a collection of her short fiction and really enjoying it too. Uneven, but really enjoying it. And I'm just obsessed with Ian Lee. Even more than wanting to read everything she's ever written, and that's manageable, less than 10 volumes of fiction, I believe. I want to read all the writers that she wrote about here, and their letters, and their diaries, and their autobiographies. I just want to sink into the reading that she did as she recovered from suicidal depression, because she wrote about it in a way that it just, wow. So yes, Ian Lee. Number 8, newest fictional crush. I have no compunction about telling you if I have a fictional crush or not. I rarely do. So I reviewed the books that I've read so far this year, and I did fasten upon one. And that was the title character of Ottessa Moshfegh's debut novella, McGlue. This was a buddy read last month, I believe, with my 2 Litzy friends, Leah and Cindy, and I liked the book a lot more than they did. I liked it a whole bunch more than I thought I would, and the main character, McGlue, it's a first-person narrative from his point of view, and he is brain damaged, dying, and completely drunk for 95% of the narrative. But he is a young man set in the mid-19th century or something in New York State. And he is very sexual. And there's a lot of homoerotic stuff going on. And that all really kind of, what's the word? Spoke to me. So yes, I carry a bit of a torch for McGlue. 9. Newest favorite character. My choice here is controversial because in identifying who my favorite character in a novel was, I'm also really taking a dig at the novel because the novel was not successful because of the fact that this character, among others, but especially this character, did not get nearly the attention that she deserved, and so it was a very unsatisfying novel for me. The novel is All Passion Spent by Vita Sackville-West, and so I've given short answers to some of the other questions, so give me a few minutes to prattle on about this, can't you? A former British Prime Minister dies at the age of 102, or no, he's maybe 90. And his wife, Lady Slane, is 88. And this is how the novel opens. She's in her dead husband's bedroom with his body. And they're very elderly children. They're all in their late 60s, early 70s. Are downstairs waiting for Lady Slane to come down. And they're all wondering what's going to happen to their mother because, Papa's dead. Which child will she move in with? And one of her daughters is a spinster, I guess for the time that this novel was published, I think in 1931. Yep. And probably set in the 20s, so I can use the word spinster. Edith was so delightful in this first chapter. Part 1 is 77 pages, and it's really, if memory serves, it's the first half of part 1 where Edith is really on the scene, and there's a whole family discussion, and the family dynamic is brutally neurotic, and everybody kind of expects that she will have her aged mother, move in with her, and there's all kinds of stuff about that, and Edith is just so fascinating and funny. And her interior monologue is so rich that I just fell in love with her. And then I was so goddamn angry that she barely shows up in the second half. And it's not like her mother was uninteresting. She wasn't. She was pretty interesting. But to introduce a character like Edith and then just take her off stage, what a ripoff. But I can't stop thinking about Edith in Vita Sackville-West's novel All Passion Spent. Woo! Number 10, a book that made you cry, or the saddest book you've ever read. I'm not a big crier, but I was moved almost to tears by one scene in particular in this novel, The Known World by Edward P. Jones. One of the main characters, I don't remember his name now, but he had been a freed slave for a long time, and the way to prove that you were a freed slave was your, what was it called, manumission paper? I may have the word wrong, but your a certificate that you had been freed by your master, and you had to carry that piece of paper on your person at all times because the police or whoever could stop you and demand to see it. Otherwise, you would be considered a fugitive, an escaped slave. And like, what a horrible system, right? One piece of paper. If you don't have it, or if something happens to that piece of paper, you are shit out of luck. And that's all I'll say about the scene that just ripped my freaking heart out in this novel. Question number 11, a book that made you happy. And I am just stymied that people read books to make them happy. Number 12, a favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year. So, I am not at all interested in movies. I can't remember the last time I saw a movie. I go to the movie theater maybe once every 2 years. Kenji and I have Netflix. We never watch movies. Admittedly, I might watch more movies if he could watch English language movies and enjoy them without having to endure subtitles. But no, I just am deeply uninterested in movies, and book to film adaptations, sorry Steve, I disagree completely with you, are always shit. I haven't watched very many, but that's my opinion. 13, favorite review you've written this year, or the Booktube version favorite video you've done so far this year. For the antic side of my persona, I would say my take on Brian of Bookish's Booktube at the Gym tag, but a link in the show notes, and more seriously, my kind of hot take review of Ian Lee's Dear Friend from My Life, I Write to You in My Life. I will link those below. 14. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. I haven't acquired any books that I would consider the most beautiful book I've ever seen, but lots of books are beautiful. So I have two, and I think they're beautiful, but I don't think once I read these books that the first thing that would come to mind about them is that they had beautiful covers. This is The Old Drift by Namwali Serpal, a novel by a Zambian-American writer, and what a chunkster. Kendra Winchester loved it, so I have picked it up on her recommendation and look forward to giving it a try one of these days. And also Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton, and I think that's a fabulous cover. So yeah, those two. Number 15, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I don't need to read any, or in general, but I do have a bunch of buddy reads scheduled or committed to. So I'm just going to flash those book covers across the screen in a second, just to show you what I'm committed to reading. Some of them are scheduled month by month, and some are just committed to that, yes, we'll do it later this year. And then there's a whole bunch that I'm not going to show you, because it would be too long, of books that I might be buddy reading later this year. I will also include books that I'm committed to for any other kind of Booktube collaboration or video discussion, anything like that. And that's my answer to this question. Here you go. Oh, and I'm not going to put all the titles and authors of these books for my buddy reading calendar in the show notes, because it will take me so much time to put that together. Plus, I think it would exceed the character count for the show notes on YouTube. And that is the Midyear Book Freakout Tag 2019 version. And I'm going to tag a whole swack of wonderful booktubers. A lot of the people who've done this, including Adam and Alex, have tagged lots of people that I would have tagged. So I'm not going to double tag people. But here's a bunch of other wonderful booktubers who, as far as I'm aware, have not been tagged. Cousin of Always Doing, Doris of Aldi Books, Natalie of My Reading Days, Heidi of My Reading Life, Madeline of Made with Books. Now, this is a channel that's pretty new to me. Madeline's been commenting on my videos, but I didn't have a chance to check her channel out until quite recently. So I'm going to actually link to her channel in this tag list. I don't take the time to link to everybody's channel for stuff like this, but I'm definitely going to link to hers because she is great. Graham Quigley, Charlotte of Tired Mama Tries to Read, Shani of Shani Reads, Amy from the Dusty Bookshelf, Jay Shea, Leo of A Little Book Life, Sonia of An Enthusiastic Reader, Greg of Supposedly Fun, and Karen of Run Right Reads. And last but certainly not least, Shaza, also known as Sharon, from Hooked on Books, and Janelle from All the World's a Page. Thanks for watching.